Welcome to the Heat versus the World podcast. And now, stand up and make some noise for your host, Joel Jacob.
How's it going, Heat Nation? Welcome back to another episode of the Heat versus the World podcast. Like always, I'm your host, Joel Jacob, and you can follow me on Twitter at JoelKJacob_. Now let's meet our correspondents for today. First, we got George.
What's up, guys? Rip KZ Okpala. You will serve a bigger purpose in the future, though.
And then we got Brian.
What's going on? I don't have much to say, but what's up?
And then last but not least, Kevin.
Yo, what's good, everybody?
All right, so let's get to it. So today we got a lot to talk about as the trade deadline draws near. And before we get into all of that, let's quickly address this past week, as the Heat are currently on a 3-game winning streak after losing the last 3 games before that. It should also be acknowledged that Miami has also blown out every team they've played in this winning streak, beating the Spurs by 17, Hornets by 18, and then the Wizards by 21. Seeing the way how Miami has played this past week while reclaiming first place in the Eastern Conference, what are some takeaways that you guys have in mind? Start us off, George.
Yeah, it's been a really good week for Heat basketball after actually not playing that well and looking quite lethargic on offense and defense as well. But I think that it's all coming together. You know, we're getting our guys back. I think the big driving factor behind actually playing this well is the fact that Bam's been averaging, even over these last few games, nearly 18 and a half field goal attempts per game, which is exactly what we want to see. But I've been very happy with the way we've been playing. Duncan's even been shooting the ball well, barring that Charlotte game. But, you know, it's just good to know that if one or two of our guys are just having an off game, we can really, we can turn it around with the offense of our other players as well. Hero was great as well. Gabe looked impressive. The entire roster just looks coming back to normal. And with the buyout market coming in a few days as well, I think we can get even stronger.
Right, and how about you, Kevin?
Yeah, man, I've been loving everything I've been seeing from the squad. It's good to see. For the most part, we've been healthy. You know, obviously no Tyler Hero, but aside from that, like, it just looks like everybody's starting to, you know, clearly find their roles. Everybody's getting comfortable. You know, we've had a lot going on between injuries with just, you know, different guys stepping in, playing different roles. And just to see everybody back, you know, again, aside from Tyler for a little bit, but hopefully he can get healthy. Obviously, we still don't have Markieff Morris, and I don't know what's going to happen with that situation. And of course, waiting for Oladipo. But I just think it's nice to just see everybody understanding what they're doing. I think the way that we play the game of basketball, the Heat, that is, it's just fun to watch. I think that's the right way to play. It's unselfish. You know, we heard PJ Tucker come out, like, what was that, a couple of weeks ago, saying that Jimmy Butler's probably the most unselfish superstar he's ever played with. And I just love hearing stuff like that because it looks like everybody gets a chance to score points. You know, Dwayne Dedmon's been playing out of his mind this season. PJ Tucker, we all know he's been having a crazy great season. And I love it. And I think the biggest key, too, that's going to help us translate to the playoffs is that the team is putting a lot of confidence. And they've been doing this for the past few years. But this team specifically is putting a lot of confidence into Bam Adebayo because we're going to need Bam to not necessarily even be like dominant in the playoffs, but if you can just hit that mid-range jumper, especially off them handoffs with Duncan, that's going to be key because that opens up everything for everybody else to have all the spacing in the world to operate with. So I love it. You know, we're beating teams that we're supposed to beat, you know, coming off of that 3-game losing streak. And I think, you know, with everything that we've encountered this season and endured through the season and still be atop the Eastern Conference is a testament to everybody a part of the Heat organization and especially Coach Spo. So shout out to Coach Spo. I love what I'm watching right now.
Right, and how about you, Brian?
Yeah, like you guys have mentioned, like I am really excited to see how this team has been playing. Largely because Bam Adebayo seems to have taken a step in his aggressiveness. Like we have been asking this of him for years, you know. he can do whatever he wants to do on the basketball court. It's just a matter of doing it, flipping that switch. And to see him finally start to do that, it's great. I don't really care if he has an inefficient night or two. You know, like as long as he's putting up around 20 shots a game, I'm good. Like the efficiency will come. We know that Bam can score in so many ways, and you know we need him to be a hub of offense for this team to be successful. I mean, not only that, I want to shout out Gabe Vincent. You know, Gabe Vincent's played really, really well as a two-way guy. You know, Jimmy Butler continuing to do Jimmy Butler things. Duncan Robinson shooting well again. Tyler Hero, you know, continuing his ascension and really solidifying himself as the sixth man of the year. Like so many of these guys just clicking at the right time. And I think that historically Heat teams have been better after the All-Star break. And it seems like these guys are kind of ramping up to making that run in the second half of the season. Like, I really think this is a team that can lock down that first seed, get home court advantage throughout the playoffs, and make a really solid run.
Right, I agree. And before I continue, does anyone have something they want to add?
Yeah, I just want to say real quickly, like, I mean, I know we probably touched on it on this pod before, but like with PJ Tucker, man, like what he's doing this season is ridiculous. Cause like, I don't think a lot of people thought that PJ Tucker had in his repertoire what he's showcasing with the Heat. You know what I'm saying? Especially in his previous stops in Milwaukee last year, you know, going back to his days in Phoenix and Houston, like all of his coaches literally just made him a spot up corner 3-point shooter. That's all he did. And he got an offensive rebound if he had the opportunity. And we all know he could play lockdown defense. But what Spo managed to do with him and the rest of the coaching staff, like utilizing him as a primary facilitator and putting him in different spots on the court, like it really just, I think PJ Tucker alone is a testimony to why Coach Spo is the best coach in the league, because most coaches in the league could not do what they're doing with PJ Tucker is what Spo is doing right now. So I just want to throw that in there because I think it's amazing in my opinion.
I agree 100%. You know, I know a lot of people diss the move of the Heat getting PJ Tucker, but you know what? He has been so amazing this year. He's probably one of, if not my favorite role player on this team. Like everything he does is just a testament to Heat culture. And, you know, like you said, Kevin, a big shout out to Eric Spoelstra, because the dude is utilizing him in a way where not a lot of coaches have been able to use him for. And that's amazing to think about. And like, George, do you have something you want to add on?
Yeah, no, I'm just gonna say as well with PJ, ever since day one, he's one of his biggest fans, because when Bam went out, when Jimmy went out, and we looked like we had no offense, you know, no defensive anchor and no identity even on defense, and we thought we were going to drop 80% of the games that we were playing for the next 6-7 weeks, and he proved that he can be that guy. He single-handedly won us the game against Milwaukee. Him and Caleb Barton's offense as well was just electric. But he shut down everyone on that team and did it with no praise whatsoever from the media, which is fine. But whoever, you know, is up against him, it must be the hardest job in the world, because he moves so well. He moves to the right spot every time. His IQ for the game exceeds so many of his peers as well. But I'm going to say, at his age, whoever's working on him, as in working on his knees, I need that guy's number as well. My knees at 25 are just as bad. And for him to look like that, it's a testament to the fact that he keeps himself right. He must be doing, you know, he's training every day. And he's just he looks 25. He looks 25 for a guy that's we thought was going to be, you know, this bum coming off the bench. For him to start and to completely lock down that starting role next to Bam, and it's the best fit we've seen next to Bam since he's been in Miami. It's the perfect player. He was the missing piece, and it proves the fact that we're the first seed in the East. Really proved that.
Right. You know what? Like, it's just overall, everything PJ has done for this Heat team has been amazing. And you know what? let's see if PJ gets a pick in this, because to follow this up, we got another segment of Spotlight Heat Player of the Week as we try to figure out who deserves praise after watching the Heat go 3-0 since our last pod. So without further delay, who's your Spotlight Heat Player of the Week? Start us off, Kevin.
Yeah, man, I'm going with Jimmy Butler. I still don't think this dude gets as much credit as he should. Like, just the things that he does on the court, the way he's evolved his game, going back to, of course, when he, in his days with Chicago, but like, man, like he can easily go off for like 30 points on any given night. We see it in games. He always shows flashes like where he has a little like mini 6-0 run by himself. Like he can take over a game at any time, but his unselfishness has really been a big time key in the rest of the team, and his confidence in his younger players from, Tyler Hero, Max Strus, whoever it is, Caleb Martin. You can just tell that he loves playing with these dudes, and he gives them a huge boost of confidence. I think they take that and they run with it. You see it shows on the court. You know what I'm saying? They have a great camaraderie, and just the way that he leads is just very different, especially because we all know the narrative that the media try to put on him, it was always BS. And so just for him to just do what he does at a high level, consistently, I think he's the all-time leader in triple doubles for the Heat now. So like, man, Jimmy's just amazing. I think we honestly probably take him for granted a little bit just because, again, he's not going out every single night just dropping 30 and 40. He could if he wanted to again, but he doesn't. He likes to see his guys eat, and I think in the long run, that's going to help this team ultimately win a championship. So I got to give it to Jimmy. He's been playing hella good. Sadly, he's our only all-star that's going to represent us this year in Cleveland, but he deserved it nonetheless. And yeah, man, Jimmy Butler's my Spotlight Player of the Week.
Right. And you, Brian?
I'm gonna go Bam, just because again, I've been really impressed with the aggressiveness, and he's played really, really well as that top scorer in that role as of late. And it's a culmination of like I said earlier, it's things that we've been asking him to do all year. Whether or not he keeps up, I don't know. But these past few games, I've loved to see it. I really, really have. So I got to give him props for that.
Right. How about you, George?
For me, it's got to be Kyle Lowry. The fact that he's come back for the last 3 games and we've won the last 3 games very convincingly means that he's got to be it for me. Jimmy deserves it. PJ deserves it. Everyone on this roster pretty much deserves it that's been playing over the last few weeks, except for you, Chris Silver. Get off my team. But Kyle Lowry just knows how to push the offense. He knows how to just work. When his numbers aren't right, you can feel it. We against the Spurs, we didn't even, his facilitating was so important, having as a threat, but he played individually quite terrible. That was his first game back after how many weeks off due to personal reasons. We still don't know what that was, by the way. But I hope you're all good now, Lowry. But the fact that he comes into this roster and makes us that much better means that he's going to be my Spotlight Player of the Week.
Right. And for me, I'm going to say Gabe Vincent. And the reason why is because the dude's been playing amazing when coming off the bench for the Heat. He's a solid defender and someone who can knock down that 3 ball. He had a pretty good game, this last one against Washington. And, to see him play good, especially after all the slander he's received in the past, it's just such an amazing thing to watch. And it just shows you how good the Heat's development team really is. And, I don't want to take too long talking about this because I know all of the Heat fans out there listening to this will now want to hear us talk about the trade deadline. And it's only right that we talk about this most recent trade the Heat made, as the Heat went out and they traded KZ Okpala to OKC for a 2nd-round pick. This is big, for this opens up a roster spot for the Heat, whether if they make a trade or explore the buyout market. To add on to this, according to Anthony Chang, the Heat and Thunder also agreed to amend the 2023 first-round pick Miami owed to OKC. Because of this, the Heat owes the Thunder a protected 2025 first-round selection that, if not conveyed, will be an unprotected 2026 pick. Why do I bring this up? This is because this allows the 2022 or 2023 first-round pick of the Heats to be traded. Having said that, I want to ask you guys, what's your takes on this trade for the Heat? Brian, I know this is a sore subject for you, but do you think you can start us off?
Yeah. While I do that, I just want to kind of make note of a few of KZ Okpala's legendary milestones while he was with the Heat. Um, Under the KZ Okpala era, the Miami Heat had a finals appearance in which they pushed the legendary LeBron James to 6 games, multiple All-Star selections, record-breaking three-point shooting seasons, Tyler Hero turning to a fringe All-Star, guys like Max Strus and Gabe Vincent becoming real solid NBA players, all under the watch of KZ Okpala as he cheered on from the bench, no doubt imparting his wisdom, greatness, athleticism, all of those good things onto his fellow players. Supporting Spoelstra in his times of need. It's pretty. I don't know what the word is, but I think that it's pretty clear. I guess is the closest thing I can say that without KZ Okpala, none of this happens, and nobody could ever prove me wrong. There's literally no way to ever prove that without KZ Okpala, any of these things would have happened. So thank you, KZ, for your great time. You're an amazing player, truly a Hall of Famer. I believe your number deserves to go up in the rafters once you're done, or as soon as tomorrow, because I just think it's fair. With all that being said, I definitely am excited for what this trade does for the Miami Heat, because they now can trade both their 2022 and 2023 first round picks. They have the Duncan Robinson salary to add to any trade. They have Omer Yurtseven, who might be of interest to some teams, and then they have a minimum salary in Markieff Morris. You aggregate all those things, and you might be able to get back an impact player, like a real impact player. And while there are still smaller names out there that I think are more realistic, you're looking at this Heat team, and you're really, really excited about the ammo that they have to essentially go into, if not this deadline, then the offseason and really look at some guys. It's common knowledge as an NBA fan, like we can expect somebody to be unhappy at some point. And when that happens, we know that the Miami Heat are going to be on their short list of teams that they want to play for. And the fact that the Heat now have the ammo to be able to be competitive in those trade talks while not having to give up one of their core pieces, that's a scary thing for other teams, and it's great for the Miami Heat. So yeah, this should be a really, really happy day for Heat fans.
Right. And you, George?
Yeah, no, I don't want to keep repeating what's been said already, but KZ, when you were here, you were a pain to watch sometimes, but now that you're gone, you have served us the purpose of cap relief, getting that free, 2022 and 3 first round picks, a second to cover the one that we lost. It was good. It was good while it lasted. We traded 3 second round picks for him. We had such high expectations, but nothing came to fruition, and it happens. We saw it with Justice as well. We take a risk and it doesn't pay off, but it's just one of those things you have to get over and deal with. It was fun though. I liked the project. He was getting back. He was actually looking productive this year. It's sad that we had to see him go, but it frees up that roster spot for someone that's actually going to make a bigger impact on a more consistent basis. Someone like, a Thad Young, or something like that, whoever makes it in there. But I'm going to say, getting those picks freed up was so important, because we've had such bad draft capital from last year, the year before, and looking for the foreseeable future, we had such a bad draft hand that freeing him up actually did some good for us. But I want to think the bigger picture, and what we can offer teams that are actually looking to sell really, really good players. Like, I know it's a long stretch, but with a Duncan contract and having Omer on the looking like a good prospect, a package could be made for someone like a Bradley Beal or a Donovan Mitchell if they were to become available. Now, that's extremely wishful thinking, but we have that hand now. We have what teams are looking for. They're looking for future future young good players like Hero and Duncan. Duncan's not particularly young, but he can still serve a purpose. And we've got picks, so it's going to be interesting to see what they're going to do with it. Do I think it's going to happen before the trade deadline? I'm not sure. I don't think so, but it's going to be fun to see now.
Right. And last but not least, how about you, Kevin?
Yeah, man, I think Brian and George pretty much hit the nail on the head. Like, I'm appreciative of not only KZ but OKC for taking KZ and allowing us to take off the protections from that first round pick. And I'm honestly at this point, I'm just curious to see what we do with it. If that impacts something, within this upcoming free agency trade deadline, or sometime within the near future. So I don't really know. KZ was cool. He was a project. Like George said, he was frustrating as hell some nights, but I'm hoping he can try and, make some things work in Oklahoma City, even though they have a lot of young players kind of already at his position. But hopefully he's able to, find a little bit more of a better fit. It's hard to put on a championship team when you're a young player, especially because you don't know yourself. You really don't know your role, and you don't know what games you're going to play. So you always just kind of got to stay prepared and stay ready. But again, I'm wishing him the best. And honestly, I'm genuinely just curious what did he do, because I don't know. I have no idea what direction they're going to lead forward into, especially with, I assume they're going to try and, fulfill that backup power forward spot with the uncertainties surrounding Markieff Morris, but I guess that's to be determined.
Right. Because of this trade, so much possibilities open up for the Heat. And it's crazy because this could possibly not be it. We're like, less than 24 hours away from the trade deadline. And because of that, I got to ask you guys, is there any names in the trade market that y'all think the Heat should go after? And do you guys see the Heat making more trades moving forward? What's your take, George?
Yeah, look, I'll just focus on two. The buyout market's a really interesting one because that's the one that everyone's leaning towards, thinking that we're going to pursue a buyout more in a better case than actually going for a trade. But Thad Young looks like he's hitting that market. And, we've been talking about getting another stretch big to back up PJ, just to make sure and just to actually get some minutes off the bench. But Thad Young looks like the best case scenario there. It's going to cost a fair bit to get him here, but hopefully with the salary cap relief from Okpala, that we can actually get that done. That's my preferred route. But if we were going to go for a trade, I think the PJ Washington route seems a bit more realistic. I think that I'd be happy to part with, Omi at 7 for him and a second round pick. I would be more than happy with that, just to get someone off the bench that really can play that 4-5, 4-5 role. He's been playing 3-4-5 the last 3 years in the Spurs, and I feel like he's still got a lot to offer. That's that young, but with PJ, you get that younger option who does play, actually not that bad of defense as well, and really can stretch the floor at a good to high level. So there's not no possibility of getting that trade done in 24 hours. But we're going to look at other teams as well, who's got a bit better of a package to offer a team like Charlotte. But for a big player, I think that's off the table now. I just think that the roster's in a pretty good place at the moment. You just need to really be careful about who we're bringing in, who we're giving minutes to, because at the moment, we've got the rotation pretty much set. So it's going to have to be someone that's actually going to make a big enough difference to really crack the rotation.
Right. And how about you, Brian?
Yes, I feel like it's going to be like a PJ Washington or a Rui Hachimura. I don't expect them to make any kind of a big acquisition this trade deadline. Like I said earlier, I think that all that stuff is going to come over the summer. So if they don't do that, I wouldn't be surprised if they just stood pat and waited for the buyout market, which isn't, the fun thing that everybody wants to hear. But, as some people on the timeline have been saying, it's the number 1 seed. Like, I think that the Heat front office is probably looking at their biggest acquisition as being Victor Oladipo getting healthy. That's going to be I don't know if you want to call it a move since it's on the team, but that's going to be the thing that really, really impacts the second half of this season. So outside of that, I don't really know if there's any other names that they're really, really going to be super interested in. I think that there's the pie in the sky names, which aren't even, I mean, really good names that I still think are pie in the sky, like Harrison Barnes. I think everybody would love. Jeremy Grant would be fantastic. Marcus Morris, all those guys that I think would fit really, really well for the Heat, and in theory, definitely make a lot of sense, but probably won't happen just because, again, I think they're gonna save their assets for a bigger move. So, which I'm not mad about. I'm really not. Like, I think that you do wait for the big fish in the summer.
Right. And Kevin?
Again, yeah, I agree with both Brian and George. Like, I think the backup power forward, the backup four spot is probably the only thing the Heat need. But as we mentioned, like this team is sitting atop the East with all these dudes going through different things, different injuries and things like that. And Kyle Lowry was out for personal reasons. We don't know. We shouldn't want to know. It's their business. But me personally, I'm under the impression, just like Brian said, just stand pat. No pun intended. Literally, you have everything for the most part. That backup four could pay dividends if you get a good one. Like, I would not mind PJ Washington. I probably prefer Thaddeus Young just because he's more experienced. I think he would fit a championship team better. I think PJ's kind of young, but he could bridge the gap, between the few prime years left that we have with Jimmy and going into the age of Bam and things like that. But yeah, honestly, I just think the backup four spot is the only position they should be concerned about. Outside of that, I think you're good literally at every other position. And to be honest, like, I don't even think it's a big need, because really you just kind of need somebody to help you cruise through the regular season. There's probably a few candidates out there that could do that, but come playoff time, like, Spo might not even use the backup for like that, for all we know. I'm just saying, like, the way PJ's been playing, like, obviously you can't play him an entire game. You shouldn't want to play him an entire game, but we seen last year he was playing heavy minutes with the Milwaukee Bucks in the playoffs. So hopefully he can do the same thing here. But I don't know, man. I think the Heat are fine where they're at. If they got to go get that four, I think I trust it, just like the rest of us should. I trust in their front office to make the right move. Just, wait for the opportunity to arise.
Right. And I agree because, seeing the way how this Heat team played this year, like, this is the first time for me in like a while where I'm actually fine where if the Heat don't make a trade. In the past, it's like the Heat have to do this, they have to do that if they really want to, compete come playoff time. But that's not really the case this season. Like, I'm 100% fine with the Heat simply keeping things the way where it is, And another thing is, if the Heat do make a trade, it's like, I personally would want someone like, I guess, PJ Washington. I know that's the name a lot of people have brought up and you guys have brought up as well. I think that would be a good addition to this team. But, trust Pat Riley. I know Pat Riley is thinking about what he's got to do. And, I think I speak for all of Heat Nation when I say that we're going to support his decision, whether if he wants to, keep the team the way how it is right now, or if he wants to go out and make whatever trade that is feasible. So now that we've talked about the trade market, I now want to talk about the buyout market. I know you guys went slightly into detail about it and some potential candidates, but since this will be a hot topic once the trade deadline comes to an end, like, I gotta ask you guys, like, is there any other candidates that you guys got in mind regarding players the Heat can go after once the trade deadline comes to an end? This time you could start us off, Kevin.
Honestly, this is gonna sound like a cop-out, but I genuinely don't know, man, because, like, I don't see Thad Young being bought out like that. Like, if I'm him, I'm staying, I'm keeping my 14 mil. Unless you can get a better offer somewhere else, which I doubt happens, then you might as well just play out your contract left with the Spurs. So honestly, I don't know. Like, I wouldn't be mad at Paul Millsap if that ends up happening. But even with him, like, he sounded very unhappy, with his situation and role in Brooklyn. So, he would just be whatever. But again, it's like, we really just need someone to help us get through the rest of the regular season. Because after that, playoff time, it's not even going to matter like that, because Spo's going to shorten his rotations, and that'll be that. But honestly, I don't know. Like, again, I thought it could be Thad Young, but I'm looking at it now, like, his contract, he'd just be smart. I think he's probably thinking the same thing, just play it out and go from there. So, I don't know, man. Again, if I'm the Heat, I just stand pat, man, at this point.
Right. How about you, Brian?
Yes, and I think it's too early to say who's going to be bought out. I mean, the only guy that comes to mind for me is Thad Young, but I kind of feel like he's bound for either, Milwaukee or the Nets or, maybe Philly if they lose Matisse Thybulle. But yeah, right now it's just, we don't know. I think we got to see how the trade deadline shakes out, and then you kind of have a better idea of who might get bought out. But at this point, it could be anybody. And I don't think that, I think that the Heat are going to look, at that market, obviously, because they have to, especially since they have an open roster spot. But I don't think they're relying on it too much. Like I said, like the biggest addition is going to be Victor Oladipo.
Right. And then you, George?
Yeah, no, I'm going to stick with Thad Young. I know he's got a $14 million, contract sitting on the table for him, which is it's probably not going to get traded, which is sad because I think that he could definitely, it might just be too valuable not to trade, but if he doesn't reach the buyout, that's who I'm looking at. Another player we're looking at as well is Goran Dragic. I know he's got a pretty good track record on the Heat before, but I'm just joking. It wouldn't feel right to bring someone like, I actually don't know if he's eligible to come back. I think he might be actually. But would you all be angry at a Goran Dragic reuniting with the Heat?
So, before I answer that, I just got to say for him to be eligible, he just has to be traded somewhere else and that team would have to buy him out. But regarding that, I don't know because, I got much love for Goran, especially after that 2020 run. And, I really wish I could have seen him win a championship with the Heat. But I don't know because the dude is getting older. Like, I don't know what he could offer to the table at this point of his career. Like, what do you guys think?
Yeah, I don't want to make it sound like I'm hating on Goran because I'm not. He was the guy who, essentially got us through those Deion, James Johnson years. Like, I know that he's loved by people outside, obviously by fans, obviously by people inside the organization, teammates, all that. Like, Goran had a great run with the Miami Heat, but I just feel like it'd be, I don't know, man. Like, I don't want to be disrespectful and say it would be a dead roster spot, but it kind of be a dead roster spot. Like, he wouldn't be playing, obviously he wouldn't be playing above Kyle Lowry, obviously not above, Victor Oladipo when he gets back. I don't even think he probably plays over guys like Strus and Gabe Vincent at this point. Doug Robinson shooting, he's going to play that 2 spot. Tyler Hero, obviously not. Like, he would kind of just be like nostalgia on the bench. And, as much as everybody loves Goji, like, I just don't think he really feels a need for this team that's trying, like, if they're trying to win a championship this year, then you got to find guys who, plug holes, that are going to be, needed in crucial moments. I just don't think Goran's going to be that, unfortunately. Yeah. But, if he I wouldn't be mad per se, but like, I just don't think they need him.
Right. And you, Kevin?
Yeah, again, like Brian said, I just don't see a need for him, man. I'm appreciative of Goran. Don't get it twisted. Like, he had a lot of great memories in Miami, but the way this team's playing, the trend that they're going in, like, if you're Spo, you really don't want to mess with this rotation at all. You don't want to mess with this team's chemistry. And I'm not saying Goran would ruin it or worsen it, but I just think, like we've been saying, this team is good. This team is in a good flow. It's in a good rhythm. They just got their starting point guard back with Kyle Lowry. So, like, I just don't think you interrupt that, man. As much as I would love to have Goran back, I just think right now we're straight. We just don't need another point guard. I hate to say it because I would love to have him back, but he's not a necessity like that, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. And then George, I know you got something you want to add on to this.
Yeah, no, my take was purely on nostalgic purposes. I think that we've really enjoyed seeing Gabe flourish into that backup point guard role. So I'm not going to take that away from him. If we were to bring him back, it would be purely for nostalgic purposes. I just can't. I don't know. I don't want to see this team win without Gogi. He's been so good for us since 2014 when was it 2015? Actually, no, it was 2014 and 15. Sorry, 15 when we picked up in a trade. But he's been so good for us, and to see him come back, it would be to play that that Kyle guy type of role. Which is, if we have him, he's there. But our guard depth is so deep. So he'd barely crack the rotation in the regular season, let alone the postseason. But I was actually looking at this trade, and I copped a lot of slack for this during the week. But if this is if getting Bradley Beal's a high end move, getting PJ Washington's a low end move, this would be a mid end move, and that's moving Duncan, Omir, and a second round pick for someone like Marcus Morris. Now, I copped a lot of slack for this during the week on Twitter, but I think if that's a move, like if there's a move to be made, that's the one I'd want to be. That's the one I'd want to see. I don't understand what people don't like about it. The fact that he's a three level scorer, he's a threat. He's been playing so well for the Clippers, and we have Strus to take up that starting shooting guard role if Duncan wants to go. So I just want to get your guys' thoughts on that.
I love it. I love the Marcus Morris idea. I would definitely move Duncan for Morris. Like, he provides so much of, I think what this team lacks from the forward perspective, and I think he's a perfect forward to play with Bam. I get the idea that he wouldn't be a closer on the team, but neither is the guy that you're trading him for. So I don't see, like, this team lacks guys that can score at all three levels. He would probably honestly be the second best 3-level scorer on the team, which is kind of crazy. But like, I don't really see why people would hate it. Like, I get that, it's a shakeup, but like, his salary, how many more years does Marcus Morris have? I wonder.
I think it's a 2-year deal.
Oh, 2-year deal. All right, cool. So yeah, you can still include his salary in a bigger deal. He's still, he's not the shooter that Duncan is, but he's still a above 40% shooter on pretty decent volume. I would love it. I'm with the Marcus Morris idea.
And I'm all for it too. Like, he is like a better player, a better overall player than Duncan. So I'm definitely open to the idea of getting him. Regarding the Clippers and them wanting to actually part ways with them, that's something I'm unsure about. But I'm definitely open to the idea of Marcus Morris coming to the Heat. And then you, Kevin?
I'm gonna have to say nah, man. Just because I'm not a part of this group that's so desperate to just trade Duncan. I just think, I said this the last time I was on here, like, he just plays such an integral part of this offense and a lot of things that he does. And again, I know he had that stretch where he was just shooting the ball bad and Heat fans was just over him, but he's been playing better as late, and he's actually been, I think, showcasing a lot more in his repertoire too. And like I said, he should, and he probably would. And I can't do it, man. And I understand it, because I would love to have Marcus Morris too. I think, I know that he were close to getting him like a couple years ago, if I'm not mistaken, around when they got Jimmy. But I just feel like, man, Duncan is too good. Like you just don't find shooters like that. Like, Duncan's one of the best shooters in the league. I don't care if he's going through a slump. Like, Steph Curry goes through slumps. The best shooters ever go through slumps. So I can't be mad when our shooter goes through a slump. It happens. And yet here we are still sitting atop the East. So, like, I just can't do it. I love the idea. Again, I value Duncan too much. And when you think about it, like, honestly, like, how many minutes did Max Strus play in the Bucks series last season? I don't think he played that much, if any. So, like, that playoff experience matters. Duncan's been there, done that, been in long runs, long games, overtime games, all of that, the whole nine. So I just can't do it. As much as I would love to have Marcus Morris, because he feels a need that we desperately need, I just can't do it, man. I value Duncan Robinson way too much.
Right. I agree, and basically when you look at it, we could just keep going with the names, to be honest. And while we could sit here and talk about it all day, I think it goes back to what I said earlier, where, we just simply got to trust Pat Riley. And, we know what we want. We can sit here all day and just, talk about we need this guy, that guy, who we can trade, who we shouldn't trade. But, I know Pat knows what's best for this team. And I'm pretty sure right now Pat is in a great position, because this team isn't like the other teams before. I think Pat looks at this team and he knows for sure this is a championship contender. And he knows that if he wants this team to win now, he's going to have to make a move, if it's going to help this team, get to that point, if it's going to help firmly establish them as that number one team. So because of this, we'll just see what happens. If the Heat make a move, like I said, we'll be cool with it. If they don't, we'll be cool with that. So, we've been talking about transactions for so long. I feel like now it's time to talk about hoops and talk about this upcoming game for the Heat as they'll be playing the Pelicans. So let's look at it real quick. The Pelicans, they're currently 22-32. This will be the Heat's second meeting against them. This Pelicans team is a little different, though. To those who didn't know, the Pelicans went out and they went and traded for CJ McCollum, Larry Nance, and Tony Snell from the Trailblazers. But really, aside from that, I mean, what's your expectations for the Heat? Because especially with the recent report coming out that Tyler Hero should be probable for this game, I'm going to just give my prediction straight up. I do think we should win this game, especially with all the rest that we got. Do you guys feel the same way? You can start us off, George.
No, I'm pretty confident about this game. I just look at all round. We are by far the better team, and now with new players, new systems, they're gonna have to learn. It's we don't know who's available for them. If they play all three, it's gonna be a massive boost to their roster. That's been lacking for so long. But I still think that they come in with the sense of having nothing to lose in this situation because it's their first game together, which actually takes the pressure off them a lot, so they can be a dangerous team. And I said this is the first time that we versed them. Valanciunas has proven against us to be some sort of a heat killer. Now, I don't think he'll be doing it against, I forgot which team he did it against, where he dropped 8 threes on them. He went like 8 of 8 or something like that. I don't expect that, but this meeting we have Bam back. I don't think we had Lowry for that game or Jimmy. So it's going to be, it's going to be our starters doing the work. If Tyler's back, that's going to be a massive, massive bench boost for us because they like to score and they like to score in bunches as well. So it's not a game I'll take lightly, but it's going to be a game that it's going to prove, if we're going to finally beat those teams that we should be beating. The last 3 games we've done it. It's just about continuing that streak.
Mm-hmm. And you, Kevin?
Yeah, I think we win this game by double digits. The Pelicans are currently on a 3-game winning streak. Of course, 2 of those games are against the Rockets, probably one of the worst teams in the NBA, if not the worst team in the NBA. And they beat the Nuggets, which is a solid win. So I'll give them that. But Brandon Ingram has been playing really well. I do like his game a lot. Again, I think we win by double digits. I expect a big game from Bam. You have a challenge in Valanciunas. You got to step up and meet those because I don't want to sound like a hater, but like a lot of the praise that Bam gets happens against teams that don't have really good big men. I want to see him do that against teams that do. And I think that would help out his confidence and his psyche a lot. And so I want to see him try and dominate this matchup. Not necessarily dominated by just scoring, but just being an overall pesking presence on both ends of the floor. So again, I do think the Heat win by double digits and the Pelicans 3-game winning streak and stretch our winning streak.
Right. And then how about you, Brian?
Yeah, I think this is a pretty easy dub. I think, it's going to be a double-digit win. The Pelicans aren't very good. I feel like bad teams, after they make pretty significant trades, they don't win right away. Because you got to, acclimate your pieces. Guys like CJ, I don't think he's going to play the next game. He's been important in his whole career. He's gonna have to learn a whole new system. So I think it's probably a pretty easy win for the Heat.
Right. Overall, I expect a blowout win from the Heat too. And, before we close it out, I know, George, you got something you want to add?
Yeah, no, sorry. I just want to make a correction. I said that we didn't have Jimmy that game. We did. Jimmy had a triple-double, actually, a 30-point triple-double. But we have Lowry and Bam back for this game. So, yeah, it's going to be a really fun watch. Heat basketball's back. We had 2 games off, and we're actually undefeated with coming off 2 days rest this season as well. So that's another good thing to look at.
Right. So with all of this being said, I can't wait to see what happens the next time we pod, especially as we wait for this trade deadline to come and then seeing how much games the Heat will win as well. But before we close out today's episode, I want to say thank you all for tuning in. And if you want to see more Heat vs. the World content, go ahead and follow our Twitter and Instagram at HVTW Podcast. while checking out our website at hvtwpodcast.wordpress.com. Last but not least, make sure to check out Culture Shock, the Heat versus the World's newest extension show, which is the first Miami Heat pod to feature an all-women cast, as they'll be dropping in a new episode very soon. And once again, thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Heat versus the World podcast, and we'll see you guys soon with another episode. We out.
Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time with a brand new episode of the Heat versus the World podcast.